The outcast. The chamber was silent, yet the silence was heavy, like a blade hanging in the air. Dozens of alien eyes stared at her, filled with fear, anger, and disgust. She stood in the center, chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles. Her hair fell across her face, her glowing eyes dimmed by exhaustion. They called her a monster. The council whispered that she was dangerous, a creature that should never have been allowed to live. To the galaxy, she was nothing more than a weapon gone wild, a shadow in the dark that left destruction behind. But to herself, she was simply a girl who had been hunted, betrayed, and cornered. Guards kept their weapons ready. Their hands trembled as they held their rifles. Every small movement she made caused them to tighten their grips. To them, she was not a prisoner. She was a storm in chains, one wrong breath away from ending them all. The council leader rose from his seat. His voice was sharp, echoing through the hall. This creature stands accused of murder, chaos, and rebellion. He declared. The crowd gathered outside roared, chanting for her end. Monster! 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 Their voices blended into one dreadful rhythm. But in the shadows of the hall, a human soldier watched. His name was Daniel. He had seen many trials before, but none like this. His people were newcomers to the galactic stage, often ignored, sometimes ridiculed. Yet he felt something stir inside as he looked at her. Her eyes were not filled with rage. They were filled with sorrow. The council shouted questions, demanding answers. She stayed silent. Her lips trembled, but no words escaped. Her silence only made them more furious. She admits her guilt, the leader said, slamming his staff. The crowd cheered louder. They wanted blood. Daniel stepped closer, his boots echoing against the marble floor. Nobody noticed him at first. He was only one human among many species. His kind was rarely trusted in such matters. But his eyes never left her. He saw the way she gripped her chains not in anger, but in fear. He saw the way she flinched when the guard shouted. In that moment, Daniel did not see a monster. He saw a broken soul, a soul crushed by the weight of lies. The guards yanked her forward, forcing her to kneel. She gasped, the sound cutting through the hall like a blade. Daniel felt his chest tighten. The council began reading the sentence. Execution at dawn. Her fate was sealed, or so they thought. The human clenched his fists. His thoughts raced. He had no authority to speak, no right to interrupt. Yet he could not stop himself. His heart screamed louder than the voices around him. He took another step. His whisper barely reached her ears, but she heard it. "You are not what they say," Daniel murmured. His words were small, yet they struck her like thunder. Her eyes widened, for the first time showing something beyond pain. Hope. The council leader slammed his staff again. "Take her away," he ordered. The guards dragged her toward the dark corridor that led to her cell. The crowd roared with victory, believing the monster would finally be gone. But Daniel remained still. His eyes followed her as she disappeared into the shadows. He knew what he had seen. He knew the truth was buried beneath fear and lies, and though he did not yet understand why, he felt a pull in his heart, a fire that told him this was not the end. The chains clattered, the torches dimmed, and the chamber emptied. Yet Daniel stayed behind. His whisper echoed in his mind, the same words that had touched her soul. "You are not what they say." And somewhere deep in the darkness of her cell, the girl repeated those words to herself, gripping them like a lifeline. She had been branded a monster, but for the first time, someone saw something more, and that single spark would change everything. The human's doubt. The night on the alien world was thick with silence. The stars above shone brightly, but inside the prison halls there was only darkness. Daniel walked slowly through the corridors, his boots brushing against the cold stone floor. He told himself he should not be there. He told himself this was madness. Yet his feet carried him deeper into the shadows. He could not forget her face. Her eyes had burned into his mind, not with rage, not with evil, but with sorrow. He remembered the way she trembled as the guards dragged her away. He remembered how the council shouted, yet she did not fight back. She looked like someone who had already lost everything. Daniel had been trained as a soldier. He knew orders, he knew discipline, and yet none of his training prepared him for this. Why did he feel this pull toward her? Why did his heart tell him that the council was wrong? He reached the prison wing. The guards stood at the entrance, tired and careless. They barely glanced at him. A human soldier meant little in their eyes. He nodded and passed, his uniform giving him just enough authority. Inside, the cells stretched along the wall, cold metal bars separating the innocent from the guilty. And at the very end, he saw her. She sat in silence, her head resting against the wall, her hands still bound by glowing chains. Daniel hesitated, his breath caught in his chest. If anyone saw him here, he could lose his rank, maybe even his life. Yet something inside pushed him forward, step by step, until he stood before her cell. She lifted her head slowly, her glowing eyes fixed on him. For a moment, the silence felt heavy again. She could have cursed him, she could have threatened him, but she did neither. Instead, she whispered, her voice weak. "Why are you here?" Daniel swallowed hard. He did not know how to answer. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Because I do not believe them," he said. Her lips curled, not into a smile, but into something broken. "They all believe it," she said. "To them, I am only death." Daniel shook his head. "I saw your eyes," he replied. "They were not the eyes of a killer." For a long time, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "You are human. Your kind has not suffered yet. One day, they will brand you too." The words struck Daniel like a blade. He knew she was right. Humanity was new to this galaxy. Already the other races looked at them with suspicion, with disdain. They called humans reckless, violent, too young to be trusted. He wondered if one day the council might chain one of his own people and call the monster too. The chains rattled as she shifted. Her eyes narrowed. "If you stay here, they will call you traitor," she said. Daniel looked at her. His jaw tightened. "Maybe I already am," he whispered. The sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor. Daniel froze. Two guards passed by, speaking in low voices. Their shadows stretched across the cell bars. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, his heart racing. When they left, the girl tilted her head. "You should not risk this," she said. Her voice was not harsh. It was almost soft. Daniel stared at her through the bars. "Maybe you are right," he said. "But I cannot stop. Something tells me your story is not finished." Her eyes widened slightly. For the first time, a flicker of light broke through her despair. She did not thank him. She did not cry. But she looked at him as though seeing something she had thought impossible. A human who believed her. The silence stretched again, but this time it was not heavy with fear. It was heavy with unspoken truth. Daniel stepped back slowly, his mind torn. He had broken every rule tonight. He had seen something he should never have seen. And yet, as he walked away, only one thought remained in his heart. If the galaxy saw her as a monster, then perhaps the galaxy was blind. And Daniel knew, deep inside, that he could not turn away anymore. The silent conversation. The prison walls groaned in the night, wind pushing through cracks in the ancient stone. Daniel returned. Though every step warned him to turn back, his orders told him to stay away. His training told him to obey. Yet something stronger than duty pulled him to her cell again. She sat in the same place, her back against the wall. Her glowing chains shimmered faintly in the dark. When she noticed him, she did not rise. She only tilted her head, her eyes sharp, studying him like a puzzle she could not solve. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence was not empty. It was heavy, charged like thunder waiting to strike. Daniel's throat was dry. He had imagined this moment, imagined what he might say, but now the words caught in his chest. Finally, she broke the silence, her voice rough. "Why do you keep coming?" Daniel shifted, his hand brushing the bars. "Because I need to understand," he said. Her lips curved, not in a smile, but in a bitter twist. "Understand what?" she asked. "How many I killed? How many worlds curse my name?" Daniel's heart pounded. He could hear the hatred in her words, but it was not hatred for others. It was hatred for herself. He shook his head. "No," he said. "I want to understand who you are when the chains are gone." Her eyes widened slightly, but she did not answer. She looked away, staring at the cracks in the stone wall. Her silence was louder than any scream. Daniel waited, his chest tight. Finally, she whispered, "Do you know what it is to be hunted, to wake each day with every star against you, to fight because there is no other choice?" Daniel swallowed hard. His people had fought wars. Yes, humanity had shed blood and faced enemies, but never had the entire galaxy branded them evil. Never had they been so utterly alone. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "No, I don't know," he admitted, "but I can listen." Her head turned sharply. Her eyes locked onto his for the first time. He saw fire there. Not despair, not fear, but raw fire. "Listen," she repeated, the word rolling like thunder. "Nobody listens. They only point, accuse, and judge." Daniel's grip tightened on the bars. "Then let me be the first," he said. The silence stretched again, but now it was different. She studied him as though testing his soul. She leaned forward, her face close to the cold metal. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If I tell you, it will change everything." Daniel's breath caught. His mind screamed that this was dangerous, that she was dangerous, but his heart answered louder. "Then change everything," he whispered back. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her voice trembled. "I fought because they left me no choice. They slaughtered villages, they burned homes, I stood in their way, and they call me monster. They twisted the truth. They needed someone to blame, and I was easiest to hate." Daniel felt the weight of her words sink deep. He thought of his own people, how humans were seen by the council, reckless, violent, unworthy. He knew one day the galaxy could turn on them too. Her hands shook against the chains. "Do you believe me?" she asked. Her voice was sharp, almost desperate. Daniel did not hesitate. "Yes," he said. Her breath caught. Her eyes widened. And for a moment, she looked younger, smaller, as if the weight of the galaxy slipped from her shoulders. She leaned back against the wall, her eyes closing. Daniel stood there, his chest heavy. He knew what he had done was dangerous. If anyone heard this conversation, he would be branded a traitor. Yet he felt no regret, only certainty. As he turned to leave, her voice stopped him, softer than before. "Human," she said. He paused, glancing back. "When they kill me," she whispered, "remember I had a soul." The words struck him like lightning. He stared at her, his heart twisting. Then he whispered back, his voice steady. "I will remember, but I will not let them kill you." Her eyes opened wide, glowing faintly in the dark. For the first time, she did not look like a monster. She looked like a soul clinging to hope. And in that silence, something unspoken passed between them. Something stronger than chains, stronger than fear. The silent conversation had begun, and neither of them would ever be the same. The trial of lies. The great hall was brighter than ever. Dozens of glowing torches burned along the walls, casting harsh light on the accused. She stood in chains once more, her head lowered, her shadow stretching across the marble floor. The council chamber was filled to the brim, voices echoing, anger spilling like fire. The council leader lifted his staff, and silence fell. His voice cut through the air. "This creature will face her final judgment today," he declared. His words carried weight, each sound pressed down on her shoulders like stone. The guards shoved her forward, forcing her to her knees. The crowd outside screamed through the open arches, chanting the same word again and again. "Monster!" Their voices were so loud that the ground seemed to shake. Daniel stood near the back, his heart pounding. He had returned even though he knew it was madness. He had spoken to her, heard her truth. Now he watched as the council prepared to bury that truth forever. Witnesses stepped forward one by one. Each spoke of villages burned, ships destroyed, lives lost. Their stories painted her as a demon wrapped in flesh. Yet Daniel could see the cracks in their words. He noticed how some avoided her eyes, how others repeated the same rehearsed phrases. It was not testimony. It was theater. The council leader slammed his staff. "She offers no defense. Her silence proves her guilt," he said. The crowd roared again. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons, ready for the final order. Daniel felt his body move before his mind caught up. He stepped forward, his voice rising above the noise. "That is a lie," he shouted. The hall froze. All eyes turned to him. The humans in the audience shifted uncomfortably. The other races hissed in disbelief. No soldier had ever dared to interrupt a trial. The council leader's gaze sharpened. "Human," he said coldly, "you have no voice here." Daniel's jaw clenched. His voice did not waver. "I saw her," he said. "I spoke with her. She is no monster. She has a soul, and you're trying to bury it under lies." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some laughed, others cursed. The guards stepped closer to Daniel, their weapons drawn. The girl raised her head slowly. Her glowing eyes widened as she stared at him. For the first time in days, she looked alive. His words had cracked the wall around her heart. The council leader struck the floor with his staff. "Enough," he thundered. "This human defends a killer. He disgraces his own kind." Daniel raised his voice again. "Then show the proof," he demanded. "Where are the records, the witnesses who saw her strike first? Where is the truth you claim to hold?" The chamber erupted into chaos. Some shouted for Daniel's silence. Others demanded answers. The council leader tried to regain control, but the storm had already begun. The girl's chains rattled as she leaned forward. Her voice, though weak, carried across the hall. "I never wanted war," she said. Her words were quiet, but they silenced the chamber more than the council leader's staff ever could. For a moment, the crowd hesitated. Her voice was not the voice of a monster. It was the voice of someone who had suffered. Daniel stepped closer, standing beside her though the guards blocked his way. His voice was steady. "You fear her because she is strong, but strength does not make a monster. Lies do." The council leader's face twisted with rage. "Take them both," he ordered. The guards surged forward. Daniel's heart pounded. He knew this moment had sealed his fate, yet he felt no fear, only resolve. The girl looked at him through the chaos. Her lips moved without sound, but he understood the words. She was saying, "Thank you." The guards grabbed him, their claws digging into his arms. They dragged him back toward the far doors. At the same time, others forced her toward the execution chambers. The crowd screamed again, louder than ever. But something had changed. Daniel could feel it in the silence between shouts, in the hesitation of a few voices. He knew the seed of doubt had been planted. The trial had not silenced her. It had not silenced him. Instead, it had lit a fire that could not be put out. As he was forced from the chamber, Daniel looked back one last time. His eyes met hers through the haze of torches and chains. He whispered with his lips alone, "This is not the end." And in her heart, she believed him. Escape in the shadows. The night swallowed the prison like a beast. The torches burned low, their flames flickering weakly against the stone walls. Guards muttered as they patrolled, their voices fading into the distance. Deep within the dungeon, she lay in chains, her body weak, but her spirit restless. Daniel waited in the shadows. His heart pounded in his chest like a war drum. Every step of a guard echoed in his ears. He knew what he was about to do was madness. To free her was to betray the council, to betray the galaxy's law. But he could no longer turn away. He moved swiftly, his hand gripping a stolen key. His fingers trembled as he slid it into the cell's lock. The click was small, but in the silence it thundered. She raised her head, her glowing eyes widening as she saw him. "Why?" she whispered, her voice sharp. "They will kill you for this." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Better to die for truth than live in lies," he said. The door creaked open. The sound felt louder than the shouts of the crowd that morning. For a moment, Daniel feared every guard in the fortress would hear, but the halls remained silent. She rose slowly, her chains dragging. Her steps were heavy, but her gaze was fierce. He moved quickly, pulling her arm, leading her into the shadows. The corridors twisted like a maze, every corner holding danger. Torches flickered, shadows stretched long. The sound of boots echoed somewhere ahead. They ducked into a narrow passage, pressing against the cold stone. Two guards walked past, their armor clinking. Daniel held his breath. Her glowing eyes dimmed as she closed them, blending with the dark. When the guards passed, they moved again, faster. Her chains rattled softly, every sound like a warning. "These chains," she whispered, They will hear us before we reach the gate. Daniel glanced at them. Glowing faintly in the dark, he gritted his teeth, pulling a small blade from his belt. Sparks flew as he cut against the links. The noise was dangerous, but he did not stop. Sweat dripped down his forehead. Finally, the metal snapped. The chains fell to the ground with a dull thud. For the first time, she stood free. She flexed her hand slowly, as if remembering what freedom felt like. Her voice trembled. "You risk everything for me." Daniel looked in her eyes. "You are not a monster," he said, "and I will prove it." They moved again, this time with her steps lighter, swifter. Her presence at his side was like a storm held in check. He could feel her strength, her power, and yet her restraint. She followed his lead, trusting him. But the alarm was not far. A shout rang out in the distance, followed by the blare of horns. The guards had discovered the empty cell. The hunt had begun. Torches flared in the corridors as soldiers rushed in. Their voices roared. Orders barked. Footsteps thundered. Daniel grabbed her hand, pulling her down a side passage. The walls closed in around them, the air heavy with dust. They ran, their breaths harsh. Behind them the sound of pursuit grew louder. Claws scraped against stone. Boots slammed against the floor. Faster, Daniel urged, though his own legs burned. At the end of the corridor, they reached a rusted gate. Daniel pushed, but it barely moved. The guards' voices drew nearer. Her eyes glowed brighter. She stepped forward, her hands pressing against the bars. With a sharp cry, she forced them apart, the metal screaming as it bent. They slipped through, emerging into a tunnel that stretched into darkness. The air was damp, the ceiling low. The only light came from her faint glow. Daniel's chest heaved, his body aching, but he pushed on. Behind them, the guards poured into the passage. Their torches lit the tunnel with firelight. Shadows chased them. Arrows clattered against stone. One struck near Daniel's arm. Slicing his sleeve, he stumbled, but she pulled him up, her grip strong. The tunnel opened into a cavern. A river of black water flowed swiftly. Daniel froze. "There's no bridge," he said. The guard's shouts echoed closer. She looked at the water, then at him. "Do you trust me?" she asked. He hesitated only a second, then nodded. "Yes." She wrapped her arm around him and leapt. The icy water swallowed them whole. The river roared, dragging them into the dark. Daniel gasped, fighting for breath. Her strength pulled him upward. Her glowing eyes guided them through the black. They burst out onto the far bank, coughing, gasping behind them. The guards' torches flickered weakly. Too far to follow. For the first time, silence returned. Daniel collapsed onto the stone, his chest heaving. She knelt beside him, her chains gone, her breath steady. She looked at him with something new in her eyes. Not fear, not despair, but trust. "You saved me," she whispered. Daniel shook his head weakly. "No," he said, "we saved each other." In the shadows of the cavern, dripping with water and wrapped in silence, they were no longer prisoner and soldier. They were fugitives bound by truth, hunted by lies. And the night was only beginning. The choice of trust. The cavern air was damp and heavy. Water dripped from jagged rocks, echoing like a clock ticking away their time. Daniel's body still ached from the river, but his mind stayed sharp. He knew the guards would not stop. Somewhere above, horns still called through the night. She sat near him, her glowing eyes dim in the shadows. Her wet hair clung to her face, yet she looked calmer than before. Free from chains, she carried herself differently, more like a warrior than a prisoner. Daniel felt it, a storm hidden beneath her silence. But the storm soon broke. A distant roar echoed through the tunnels. Not the voice of guards, but something far worse. She stiffened instantly. "They sent hunters," she whispered. Daniel frowned. "Hunters?" Her eyes narrowed. "Not soldiers. Hunters. They're trained to kill without mercy. They will not bring me back. They will tear me apart." The words chilled him. He tightened his grip on his small blade, knowing it was useless. Still, he stood. "Then we keep moving," he said. They pushed deeper into the tunnels. Darkness stretched endlessly. The walls pressed closer, the air colder. Then the sound came. Footsteps that did not echo like soldiers. but slithered like predators. Shadows danced ahead. Eyes gleamed faintly in the dark. The hunters appeared, armored figures with blades that shimmered with poison light. They moved without a word, silent as death. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His instincts screamed to fight, to run, but his body froze. She stepped forward. Her glowing eyes burned brighter. The air around her seemed to crackle. For a moment, Daniel saw what the council feared. Her power was no myth. It was alive. The hunters lunged. Their blades cut through the air. Daniel shouted, raising his knife, though it was nothing. But before the strike landed, she moved. Her chains were gone, and with them, her restraint. A wave of force burst from her hands, slamming into the hunters. The cavern shook, rocks tumbled. The hunters were thrown back, their armor bending, their blades shattered. Daniel staggered, staring at her. The glow of her power filled the tunnel. Wild and terrifying, her hair whipped around her face. Her voice was a cry, not of rage, but of desperation. The hunters regrouped, charging again. She unleashed another blast. Her body trembled with the effort, but her eyes burned like fire. They collapsed one by one, broken by her strength. When it ended, silence filled the cavern. The hunters lay scattered, unmoving. The walls smoked where her power had struck. The ground was scorched. Daniel could barely breathe. She stood in the center, her chest heaving. Her hands shook as the glow slowly faded. Then she looked at him, her eyes wide, filled with fear, not of the hunters, but of him. You see, she whispered, her voice breaking, this is what I am. This is what they call monster. Daniel's heart pounded. For a moment, he truly did not know what to feel. He had seen her destroy trained killers with a power no human could match. She was terrifying, unstoppable. She sank to her knees, her face hidden in her hands. If you fear me, leave, she said. It is what everyone does. They see only the power, never the soul. Daniel stepped closer. His boots scraped against the stone. His hands trembled, but not from fear. He knelt beside her. His voice was steady. I saw what you did, he said. You could have killed them all in hate, but you fought to protect us, to protect me. She looked up, her glowing eyes shimmering with tears. And if one day I cannot control it, she whispered, if I destroy everything. Daniel held her gaze. His answer came without hesitation. Then I will still stand beside you, he said, because I see you, not the monster they claim. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, silence filled the cavern again. It was no longer the silence of fear. It was the silence of trust being born. The horns outside grew louder. More hunters would come. Daniel helped her to her feet, his grip steady. She did not pull away for the first time. She let herself lean on someone. The storm within her had been revealed, but did not drive him away. It drew him closer, and in that choice, a bond was sealed, stronger than chains, stronger than fear. Together, they stepped deeper into the dark, knowing the galaxy would never forgive them. But Daniel's heart was sure of one thing. He had made his choice, and his choice was her. Redemption of a monster. The dawn light bled across the horizon, painting the alien city in pale fire. The council chamber once more filled with voices, louder than storms. The crowd had gathered again, certain that the trial had ended, certain that the monster would soon be executed. But the doors burst open. Daniel and the girl walked in. Her chains were gone, her steps firm, her eyes glowing brighter than the torches. The guards moved to block them, but she raised a hand, not to destroy, but to hold them still. Her power shimmered in the air, not wild, not chaotic, but calm, controlled. Gasps filled the chamber. Some stepped back in fear. Others leaned forward in awe. The council leader slammed his staff, his voice shaking with fury. Seize them, he shouted. This trial is over. Daniel stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. No, he said, this trial has only begun. The council turned their fury on him. You are a traitor, human, they spat. You stand beside a monster. Daniel's voice did not tremble. I stand beside the truth, he said, his words carried across the chamber. He pointed to the girl. You call her a monster, yet she spared those who hunted us. She fought only when forced. She is power, yes, but power alone does not make evil. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some remembered how the council had refused evidence, how the witnesses had all spoken the same lines. Doubts spread like fire. The girl stepped forward, her voice soft yet unshakable. You call me death, she said, but I have carried life. I shielded children. I protected the weak, yet you twisted my strength into fear. The crowd hushed. Her words were not shouted, but they cut deeper than any roar. The council leader raised his staff again, desperate. Lies, he thundered. She cannot hide her nature. Her power is destruction itself. Daniel moved closer to her, standing at her side. Then let the galaxy see, he said. The hunters appeared at the edge of the hall, their blades dripping with poison light. They had followed, ready to finish what the trial had not. The council did not stop them. In truth, they had summoned them. The hunters charged, the crowd screamed. The council smiled, but then it happened. The girl raised her hands. Power burst forth, not in rage, but in harmony. The air shimmered like sunlight on water. The hunters froze mid-strike, their blades halted inches away from Daniel's chest. She did not crush them, she did not destroy. Instead, her power wrapped around them like a storm turned into wind. She forced their weapons down, their bodies trembling, but alive. The chamber fell silent. All eyes widened. The monster had shown mercy. Daniel's voice rang out. Do you see, he cried. She does not kill because she must. She chooses not to kill because she has a soul. The hunters dropped to their knees, defeated not by death, but by truth. The crowd erupted, not in anger this time, but in voices rising with doubt, with hope. The word monster faltered on their tongues, replaced by silence. The council leader's face twisted with rage. You fools, he shouted. She will destroy us all. But his words no longer held power. The people had seen with their own eyes. They had seen strength chained, strength twisted by lies. They had seen a soul that refused to be broken. The girl stood tall. Her glowing eyes scanned the hall. Her voice was steady. I am not what you say, she whispered. I am not your monster. And for the first time, they believed her. Daniel looked at her, his chest heavy with pride. He had risked everything, lost everything, but gained something far greater. In her he saw humanity reflected, not in species, but in spirit. The council leader dropped his staff, his voice drowned by the roar of the crowd. The trial was over, but not by his command. It ended because truth had broken free. The girl turned to Daniel, her lips trembling. Why? She asked softly. Why fight for me? Daniel smiled faintly. Because I saw your soul, he said, and it was worth saving. Her eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time, truly she smiled. The hall shook with voices, but in that moment, neither of them heard the noise. They had walked through lies, chains, and fear, and now they stood together, not as soldier and prisoner, not as human and monster, but as two souls who had chosen to believe in each other. And somewhere deep within the galaxy, the story began to spread. The tale of the monster who was no monster at all, and the human who saw her truth. Redemption had come, not through blood, but through faith. And the galaxy would never forget.